Everyone went silent when I opened the box. Even the kids stopped running. My name is Rachel. I'm 34, 8 months pregnant. And just yesterday, my sister Clarissa handed me a giant pink package at my baby shower that was supposed to be a special gift. Inside, a box full of used diapers. Actual, used. Diapers. Folded, stained, disgusting. Like she'd scooped them from a trash can and gift-wrapped the insult. She stood there, arms crossed, grinning like she'd just won a game. "Lighten up, Rachel," she said, tossing her curled blonde hair back. "It's a joke. You're the successful one. Buy the real ones yourself." What most people saw was a dramatic moment at a cheerful party. But what I saw was the final straw. Years of snide remarks, subtle digs, guilt trips, and financial manipulation, compressed into one humiliating act. Clarissa's gift wasn't just a prank. It was war. And unfortunately for her, she brought used diapers to a chess match. To anyone else, Clarissa looks like the fun one. She's charming, dramatic, walks into a room like it's her stage. But underneath, she's the kind of person who wraps cruelty in charisma. She's been doing it since we were teenagers. When I got into college on scholarship, she told our relatives that I only got in because I knew how to kiss ass. When I opened my design studio, she posted a sarcastic girl boss meme and tagged me. And every time she ran out of money, which was often, she called me crying, saying she had no one else. I always helped. I paid her rent twice, covered her overdraft fees, co-signed a lease I ended up buying out. And now, standing in front of 50 guests at my baby shower, she decided to mock me with garbage. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just smiled. I knew exactly what to do. "Clarissa," I said sweetly, setting the box down beside me. "You always know how to surprise me." Her grin faltered, just slightly. I turned toward the guests, co-workers, friends from college, my husband's family. I wasn't going to make a big deal today, but I actually have a little announcement too, since we're handing out surprises. Chris, my husband, shifted beside me, knowing that tone in my voice. The room got quiet. "I bought a new property recently," I continued, keeping my voice bright. "A 2-bedroom condo in East Park. I wasn't going to say anything, but now seems like the right moment." Clarissa's face paled. "See? The owner was eager to sell. The previous tenant had fallen behind on payments. I figured I'd help. Out. Give them time to get back on their feet. But now I'm rethinking that plan." Clarissa opened her mouth. "You're not." "I am," I cut in. "I bought your condo, Clarissa, 2 months ago. You've been living in my property. And now you have 10 days to vacate." The gasp from the back of the room could have been a firecracker. Clarissa's eyes widened, her voice dropping half an octave. "You're joking." I pulled my phone from my purse, tapped twice, and turned the screen to her. A clean PDF copy of the deed, with my name printed at the top. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was electric. Clarissa stared at the screen, then at me, like she couldn't comprehend the reversal. "Let me guess," I added, voice low but clear. "You thought the bank would keep playing nice, right? That you could slip another month or 2 before the eviction notice? Funny how things work when someone decides to stop cleaning up your mess." She laughed, a thin, strained sound. "You're seriously evicting me? Over this?" She gestured at the box like it was some harmless joke. "God, Rachel, grow up." "I have," I said, turning back toward the crowd. "That's why I'm done." Behind me, Chris reached over and gently took the box of used diapers off the table. Clarissa watched, stunned into silence for once. But here's the thing. This wasn't about the box. Not really. It was about every moment I'd let her chip away at me while calling it sisterhood. Every time I'd been told I was the lucky one, so I should give more, forgive more, accept more. This time, I chose something else. I chose myself. Later, as guests filtered out in a weird mix of admiration and disbelief, Chris leaned over and whispered, "That was surgical." I smiled, but my mind was already racing ahead. Clarissa wouldn't give up that easily. She'd twist it, spin the story, paint herself as the victim. I knew her patterns like a blueprint, but this time I was ready. One guest, a quiet woman named Emily from Chris's work, came up to me before she left. "I hope this doesn't sound weird," she said, "but watching you today, that was inspiring." I thanked her, not for the compliment, but for noticing. Because sometimes, revenge doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be undeniable. And I had only just started. The phone rang before I even finished brushing the crumbs off the tablecloth. I hadn't even changed out of my dress yet. Still in that pale pink Empire Waist maternity number Clarissa had mockingly called Easter. Sunday meets PTA fundraiser. I looked at the screen. Mom. Of course. The post-baby shower damage control committee had clocked in early. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hi, Mom." What the hell was that, Rachel? Not even a greeting. Straight to it. Classic. I leaned against the kitchen counter, calm as ever. "You'll have to be more specific. You humiliated your sister in front of everyone. She was crying in the driveway, Rachel." "She humiliated herself," I said, already regretting picking up the call. I just responded, with facts. She was joking. I smiled, but it didn't touch my voice. "Right. And I made a business decision." Mom let out one of those deep, performative sighs, designed to make me feel like I was the one tearing the family apart. "You could have talked to her privately. Not like that. Not in front of people." "You mean like how she gave me a box of dirty diapers in front of people?" "She was trying to be funny. You know how Clarissa is." "I do," I said quietly. "That's exactly why I did what I did." That silenced her for a moment. Not out of agreement, but confusion. Because people like my mother don't register pain unless it comes from someone they've appointed as fragile. And Clarissa had been fragile since birth. She didn't have to be thoughtful, responsible, or kind. She only had to be helpless. That was her power. Mine, apparently, was always being the strong one, which meant no one noticed when they were kicking me while I stood tall. Mom regrouped. "Look, we all know Clarissa has made mistakes, but she's had a rough year." "She's had a rough decade," I replied, "and most of it is because she keeps torching every opportunity she's given. How many times have I paid her rent, Mom?" Mom didn't answer. She didn't want to do math today. She told me she needed help in February. I wired her $2,000. You know what she texted me last week? I didn't wait for her to answer. She asked if I could cover her mani-pedi and car detail, said she needed to look fresh for the baby shower. Mom groaned. Okay, that wasn't smart. It wasn't just not smart. It was calculated. She knew exactly what she was doing today. She wanted to knock me down a peg, and she thought everyone would laugh along. Well, maybe you've made her feel inferior. I cut in. I've made her feel accountable, which is not the same thing. She calls that cruelty. I call it adulthood. There was a long pause, then a quieter tone. What happens now? She moves out. 10 days. I already gave the notice. She has nowhere to go. She had somewhere to go. She chose to turn it into a joke. You're pregnant, Rachel. You're emotional. I laughed softly. No, Mom, I'm strategic. Big difference. I ended the call before she could answer. Chris walked in from the patio, holding 2 coffee mugs. That the fireworks? I took the cup he handed me. It's starting. He leaned against the island across from me. You sure you're ready? For this? I took a sip. I was born ready. I just didn't know it until today. I spent the rest of the evening checking accounts, forwarding property records, and changing the door lock codes on the condo. Clarissa hadn't paid rent in 4 months. The landlord had reached out to me as a favor, asking if I wanted to make a private offer before it went public. I saw it for what it was, a test, and I passed. Not because I wanted to punish Clarissa, but because I finally saw clearly I couldn't change her, but I could change the rules of how I interacted with her. At 11:47 p.m., I got a text. Unknown number, but I recognized the writing style instantly. "You really think this is gonna make you the better person?" I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to my lawyer, Angela, a calm, steel-spined woman who once negotiated a divorce settlement that included ownership of the family dog and a private tennis court. She responded in 3 words: "Don't engage, document." Angela had also told me something a month earlier when I first told her about the Clarissa situation. "Revenge isn't fire, Rachel. It's ice. Let her slip on it." And that's what I intended to do. At 1:06 a.m., another text came in, this time from Clarissa directly. "Just so you know, Mom's furious. Everyone thinks you're cold. You'll regret this." I stared at it for a full minute. Then I typed back one line. "You should have bought a better gift." And I blocked her. In the morning, the smear campaign would begin. I knew how Clarissa operated. She'd reach out to cousins, old college friends, anyone gullible enough to believe that I was the villain. But she didn't know I had receipts, literal and metaphorical. And more importantly, she didn't know I'd stopped caring about keeping the peace. Let her set fires. I'd built a house that didn't burn. Clarissa didn't leave quietly. She never did. After I made the announcement at the baby shower, cool and clear, no yelling, no theatrics, she'd frozen for exactly 3 seconds before storming out, heels stabbing into the lawn like weapons. Most people thought that would be the end of it. They clearly didn't know her the way I did. I knew Clarissa like muscle memory. Her next move was already playing in my mind before she even hit the driveway. Chris was still talking to a few guests when I slipped away to the front porch, phone in hand. I needed to make one call before the night ended. Not to Mom, not to Clarissa. I called Jordan, my old law school friend turned real estate advisor. The one who helped me quietly close the deal on the condo 2 months ago. "She knows now," I said when he picked up. A beat of silence, then a dry laugh. "And?" "She'll retaliate, probably fast. I just want everything tightened up. No loopholes, no back doors." "You're good," he said. "Deeds clean. Your name, full rights. She can scream all she wants. Legally, it's yours." "Good," I said. "But flag the unit. No emergency maintenance calls, no unauthorized visitors. I don't want her sending over her usual drama as a distraction." "I'll tell the building manager," he replied. "You want security on standby?" "Not yet. Let her try something. I almost want her to." When I walked back inside, Clarissa was gone. The baby shower had dissolved into a strange mix of stunned silence and polite chatter. Some people looked at me like I'd just kicked a puppy. Others, the ones who really knew me, nodded like they'd been waiting years for that moment. Chris raised an eyebrow as I approached. "Handled?" "For now." We cleaned up the decorations in silence that night. I could feel the questions, pressing against the walls, unspoken, but heavy. Did I overreact? Was this really necessary? Should I have pulled her aside instead of making it public? I knew the answers. Every woman who's been pushed too far knows the answers. I hadn't made a scene. I'd made a statement. The next morning, the fallout began. It started with the voicemail from Dad. Not yelling, not even angry, just disappointed, which somehow always felt worse. "Rachel," his voice rasped through the speaker. "I don't know what happened yesterday, but your sister is crushed. Your mother's in tears. Clarissa said you threatened to throw her out of her home in front of everyone. If this is a misunderstanding, I suggest you clear it up. Family doesn't do this." I didn't reply. Not to him, not yet. Instead, I pulled. out a legal envelope from my desk drawer, one I had prepared weeks ago just in case. Inside was a formal notice, termination of tenancy, 10-day timeline, signed and dated. The moment I dropped it in the outgoing mail pile, I felt something I hadn't in months: peace. Because for once, I wasn't cleaning up her mess. I was clearing her out. But Clarissa didn't wait for a mailed notice. She showed up at my house that evening, right as the sun dipped below the rooftops. Her knock was fast, aggressive, the kind that says, "I'm not here to talk, I'm here to win." I opened the door slowly. "What the hell is wrong with you?" She snapped, brushing past me into the living room. She still had mascara smeared under one eye, like she'd intentionally kept the tear-stained look going for dramatic effect. "Nice to see you too," I said, closing the door behind her. "You really think this is okay?" she hissed, spinning around to face me. "You embarrassed me, in front of everyone, over a joke." "Used diapers aren't a joke," I said, voice flat. "They're a statement, and so was mine. You had no right to buy my home. That was my safe space, It was never yours," I interrupted. "You were leasing it from someone who got tired of waiting for rent that never came. I made them an offer. You gave them the excuse." She glared at me, arms crossed. "You've always wanted to one-up me. Admit it." I walked over to the sideboard and pulled out a manila folder. "Actually, Clarissa, I've always wanted one thing: boundaries, and you've crossed every one I've ever set. So I made new ones." I handed her the folder. She looked down, confused. "What's this?" "Itemized list," I said. "Every dollar I've lent you in the past 3 years. Every emergency fund, every bailout, every bill I covered. No interest, just the facts." She flipped through the pages, her mouth twitching as the total at the bottom came into view. $16,240. "You kept track?" "No." "I started keeping receipts when you stopped keeping promises." She dropped the folder on the floor like it burned. "You're sick." "No," I said, voice cold and calm. "I'm awake." That was when Chris walked in from the hallway. He didn't say a word, just stood behind me, arms crossed. She looked at him, and for the first time in forever, I saw something unfamiliar on her face. Doubt? Not at me, at herself. "You two deserve each other," she spat. "You think you're so high and mighty, so perfect." "I don't think I'm perfect," I replied. "But I know when someone's toxic, and I'm done pretending your chaos is my responsibility." She stood there for a moment longer, seething. Then she turned and stormed out. Twist the knife? Maybe. But here's the thing: when someone spent their whole life swinging at you, calmly stepping aside isn't cruelty. It's survival. And this time, I wasn't just surviving. I was taking back my story. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Missed call after missed call stacked across my screen like digital shame. I'd turned the volume off, but somehow the vibration still felt loud in the silence of my kitchen. First Mom, then Dad, then Clarissa using some unknown number, and even a few relatives I hadn't spoken to in months. I didn't answer any of them. I wasn't interested in public relations. I was interested in reclaiming power, and if they needed me to look like the villain for a little while so I could do that, then so be it. At 10:13 a.m., I opened my texts and read the first message out loud to Chris, who was sipping his coffee, across the island. "Mom, you've gone too far, Rachel. This isn't the girl I raised." He didn't look up. She's right. The girl she raised would have let Clarissa humiliate her, pay her rent, and still bring her a casserole. I smirked and kept scrolling. Another message from Clarissa, typed in her usual lowercase dramatics. "Hope you're happy. I'm literally homeless now, over a joke. You're disgusting." No punctuation. Always the victim. Chris finally looked up. "You gonna reply?" "No," I said. "I'm going to document everything. She's laying the foundation for a pity tour. Let her. Let them all." He nodded. You have receipts? More than the IRS, I said, pulling out a small box from the drawer next to the fridge. Inside were printed screenshots, wire transfers, even a Venmo log that showed a pattern. Rachel the ATM, Clarissa the overdraft artist. I had every excuse she ever gave. Bad landlords, sudden breakups, stolen purses, identity theft. But none of them explained the Chanel boots she wore to Thanksgiving or the spa trips she posted from while I was working double hours to cover her emergencies. At 2 p.m., Mom showed up unannounced. Of course, I let her in. She didn't even sit before starting. Clarissa's devastated. She always is. She's your sister, and I'm your daughter, one you seem perfectly fine throwing under the bus to protect her. She blinked. That hit. Good. I'm not throwing you under the bus, she said, folding her arms. I'm trying to stop this family from falling apart. It's been falling apart for years, Mom. I'm just the first one who decided to stop holding it together with duct tape and guilt. Her mouth opened, then shut again. I watched her calculate her next move. She always defaulted to emotional leverage, but I wasn't 17 anymore, and this wasn't a late-night curfew negotiation. She needs time, she said, softening her voice. Just a few more weeks. She's not ready. She's 36. If not now, when? I'm just saying, 10 days is cruel. No, 10 years was cruel, I said. This is merciful. Rachel, did you know she pawned Grandma's necklace? I said, cutting in sharply. The one you said was non-negotiable? She blinked again. Her lips parted, stunned. That was the twist I had been holding back. I'd found out months ago when a jeweler friend of mine texted, asking if Clarissa was supposed to be selling it. I had the appraisal slip and the pawn shop photo. I'd kept it quiet. Until now. She said she lost it. She did, I said, in exchange for $480 and a bag of weed. My mother sat down slowly, hands trembling. For a moment, she didn't speak. She looked 10 years older. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Because I was tired of being the bad guy, I said. And I knew you'd defend her anyway. Silence. That heavy, necessary kind. Then, quietly, she said, What do you want from me? Nothing, I replied. That's the point. I don't want to fix her. I don't want to babysit your guilt. I don't want to explain myself anymore. She didn't cry. I'll give her that. But she looked at me like a stranger. Maybe, in a way, I was one now, someone who no longer responded to manipulation, who didn't fold when shamed. I hope this makes you feel strong, she said, bitterness creeping in. It doesn't make me feel strong, I said. It makes me feel free. When she left, Chris came into the room holding my phone. You missed another call, he said. Dad this time. I'm not interested in playing mediator. You don't have to be, he said, handing me the phone. But you might want to hear what he has to say. I hesitated, then hit play on the voicemail. Dad's voice, slow and thoughtful. I think I understand now. I'm sorry it took this long. She's angry, but she's always angry. You seem done, and that's what scares her. I replayed it twice. That night, I took down the baby shower banner still hanging in the hallway. I folded it neatly, placed it in the closet, and labeled the box. Last time I let anyone weaponize my kindness. Clarissa had made her move. Now it was my turn to escalate. Not with rage, with results. Clarissa came back 3 days later, not as a hurricane, but as a breeze. Soft knock, hoodie, hair tied back, eyes red, like she had studied every visual cue of regret on YouTube and was ready to perform. I opened the door halfway, expecting a new version of the same script. Deflection, victimhood, maybe some faux tears. Instead, she held out a check. $600, she said. I sold my iPad. Just let me stay another month. I took the check without a word and stepped aside. She entered slowly, scanning the house like it might attack her. Clarissa didn't belong in quiet spaces. She thrived in chaos and crowds where attention blurred accountability. But here, in my calm, curated home, she looked like a shadow without a wall. Chris stayed out of sight, but I knew he was listening. I could feel the tension shift in the air. "I meant what I said," Clarissa murmured, sitting down on the edge of the couch like it might eject her. "I know I crossed a line. I just thought we were closer than that." "You thought I'd take it," I said flatly. She flinched. It was a bad joke. "No," I said, sitting across from her. "A bad joke is saying the baby's name sounds like a car brand. What you did was planned, and you enjoyed it." She didn't deny it. Smart move. That was new. "I'm trying to make it right," she said, voice low. "I'll get a job. I'll pay rent. I'll keep quiet." I smiled. "You'll keep quiet?" "About everything." There it was, the subtle threat behind the apology. A familiar move. Bury the real leverage inside the offer. She wasn't asking to stay. She was reminding me she could make noise if I didn't let her. I leaned forward. "Do you remember 2019? She blinked. "What?" "When you crashed my car," I continued. "Took it without asking while I was on a work trip. Said it was for an emergency. Totaled it. Lied to insurance. And when I covered it, you told everyone I bought a new car to show off." I forgave that," I said. "I forgave a lot, but I didn't forget." She sat still, stunned. I reached into the drawer beside me, pulled out a sleek black folder, and opened it on the coffee table. Inside were more than receipts. There were screenshots, copies of texts, payment records, statements with her name attached, a quiet dossier of history. "This time," I said, tapping the folder, "I'm not burying it." Clarissa stared at the documents like they might catch fire. "I'm not threatening you," I continued. "I'm informing you. If you stay, you pay. Full rent, on time. Any missed payment, any lie, any stunt, and I don't just evict you. I go public. I let people see the real version." "Rachel," she whispered, "you'd really do that? To me?" "I'd really stop protecting you from yourself." She didn't cry. She knew crying wouldn't work here. Instead, she nodded slowly, eyes downcast, playing obedient. It was almost impressive how fast she shifted personas. "You can stay until the 10th, I said, sliding the check off the table. "We'll see if this clears." It didn't. The check bounced 2 days later. I got the alert in the middle of a prenatal yoga class. While everyone else exhaled and hummed, I stared at my phone, pulse steady. Clarissa had lied, again. But this time, I had let her. I wanted to see if she would take the bait. She did. That night, I didn't confront her. I simply printed the bounce notice, folded it neatly, and left it on her bedroom door with a yellow post-it that said, "You've got 6 days left." No more conversations, no more lectures. Just deadlines. The next morning, I found her in the kitchen, dressed up in that "I'm responsible now" corporate look. Button up, slacks, too much perfume. She was on the phone, fake laughing with someone. As I walked in, she ended the call. "Interview," she said. "Accounting firm." I nodded. "Good for you." But something in her tone felt off. Too polished, too fast. And later that afternoon, I confirmed what I suspected. The accounting firm she mentioned was actually the ex-boyfriend she told. Everyone was abusive. The same man she swore she'd never speak to again. I checked his company website. No job openings, no interviews scheduled. I was done taking her words at face value. She didn't know it yet, but I had started tracking. The timeline, documenting the lies, collecting the cracks. Not for revenge. For closure. That night, Chris and I sat on the patio while the air turned cool. "She's going to crash again," he said. And when she does, she'll try to take you down with her. I know, I said. That's why I'm not giving her the chance. Chris looked over at me. What's your plan? Let her lie, I said. Let her build the trap. I'll just make sure she's the one standing in it when it snaps. Because when someone uses your love as a leash, the most powerful move isn't breaking free. It's cutting the rope and watching them realize they've been lost the whole time. Clarissa's apology tour lasted exactly 4 days. By the 5th, her strategy shifted, from fake humility to subtle sabotage. It started with a post, harmless on the surface. A picture of a packed suitcase with the caption, "Some people throw you out, others show you the door. Same result, right?" No names, no tags, but just vague enough to spark curiosity and paint her as the wounded party. The comment section, "Did the rest?" "Oh no, what happened? You deserve better, babe. Family's supposed to protect you." And then came the private messages from mutual acquaintances. "Hey, is everything okay with you and Clarissa?" She seemed really upset. Translation: Clarissa had launched her smear campaign. I didn't respond. I watched. Because the thing about letting people talk is they eventually tell on themselves. And Clarissa? She was never good at pacing. She always burned the wick from both ends. Quick, bright, messy. 2 nights later, I got a call from Aunt Lydia, who hadn't spoken to me in 6 months. "Clarissa said you bought her condo just to evict her. Is that true?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked to my office, opened my filing drawer, and pulled out a printed copy of the signed deed. "It's true I bought it, I said calmly. It's also true she hadn't paid rent in 4 months, trashed the unit, and gifted me a box of used diapers at my baby shower." There was a long pause. Then, "She didn't mention that part." Of course she didn't. After that, I started dropping quiet truths. I didn't make a scene or post dramatic rants. I didn't call anyone out by name. I just started telling the truth, surgically, precisely, and only when asked. I let facts do what feelings couldn't, reframe the narrative. One by one, the whispers died. And one by one, people started to understand. But Clarissa wasn't done. The night before her final move-out deadline, I found the hallway bathroom flooded. Not just a spill, full-blown sabotage. Towels shoved down the drain, water pooling, into the hallway. She was trying to trigger a panic. Damage the house. Force me to feel like she still had power. She was in the guest room when I opened the door. "You flooded my hallway." She didn't look up from her phone. Oh no, must have been a plumbing issue. I stared at her for a long moment, then said, "Pack your things. You're leaving tomorrow morning. I won't ask again." She rolled. Her eyes. "You're a control freak, Rachel. You don't know how to let go." That made me laugh. "Clarissa, I've done nothing but let go. Of expectations, of illusions, of you." I shut the door quietly behind me. Chris helped me mop up the mess. We didn't talk much, but there was an unspoken current between us. Not frustration, not fear. Readiness. The next morning, I had movers waiting outside at 8 a.m. I didn't give her the chance to make a scene. She came out of the guest room, still in her pajamas, saw the truck, and started shrieking, "You can't do this! You can't legally put me out like this!" "I can, and I am. I have nowhere to go." "You had time. You used it to lie." She stormed into the kitchen, slamming drawers and muttering curses under her breath. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching her spiral. Then she did something I hadn't predicted. She walked up to me, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "If you don't let me stay, I'll tell everyone what you did to Mom." It was so unexpected, so off script, that I actually laughed. "What exactly did I do to Mom?" She smirked. "You think people won't believe me?" And there it was. The bluff. The desperation. The final weapon. Fabricated scandal. I stepped closer, lowered my voice, and said, "You want to play that card? Go ahead. But understand something. I have audio of our last conversation, of the check you bounced, of you admitting it was a fake interview. One push from you, and I bury you in proof." Her expression faltered. I didn't blink. "You wanted a war," I said, "but I came with armor and documentation." She didn't speak, just stormed out and slammed the front door behind her. The movers loaded her things. She didn't even say goodbye. Later that night, I received a final message. "You're cold. I hope it was worth it." I stared at it for a moment, then deleted it. Clarissa thought cold meant cruel. But cold is just the absence of fire, the absence of chaos, the absence of burning yourself over and over just to keep someone else warm, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't burning anymore. The silence Clarissa left behind wasn't peaceful. It was surgical, clean, sharp, undeniable. Her room was empty, the bathroom scrubbed just enough to say, "I tried," but not enough to hide the final insult. A ripped photo of us as kids, slashed through the middle, stuffed beneath a drawer, with the edges still trembling. I didn't react. I logged the moment mentally, like a chess player noting the last desperate move of a collapsing opponent. She wanted to leave a mark. I'd let her. And then I'd erase it on my own terms. Called a cleaning service the same afternoon. I wasn't going to spend another hour undoing Clarissa's chaos. Let someone else bleach the resentment from the grout. While the cleaners worked, I stood outside with Chris, watching the movers haul off the last of the baby gear my friends had dropped off the week before. He handed me a lemonade, laced with ginger and mint. I was due in 3 weeks, and every breath was heavier now, not just from the baby, but from the emotional debris I'd spent years carrying. "You sure about the tenant idea?" Chris asked, nodding toward the folder I was holding. I looked, down at the lease application in my hand. "Yes," I said. "I want that place to mean something now, not just to me, because that condo had been a battlefield, a tool of guilt, a financial noose I kept tightening around my own neck, thinking if I just gave Clarissa enough room, she'd figure it out. She never did, so I reclaimed it. The ad had only been live for 6 hours when I found her. Maria, 22, single, mother, 1-year-old son, recently left an abusive partner. The agency vetted her, and I did the rest. I met her in person, face to face, because I needed to know what kind of energy I was allowing into the space. She walked in with tired eyes and a steel spine, the kind I recognized. Not someone who wanted a rescue. Someone who'd already done the hard part, walking away. I handed her the keys 2 days later. 6 months rent-free, I said. "Just show me you're working toward stability. That's all I ask." Her eyes welled up. She tried to hand me a $50 bill, like it would balance the scales. I pushed it back gently. "Trust me," I said. "This isn't charity. It's reclamation." Maria moved in that weekend. Within hours, she'd repainted the kitchen walls a soft green and replaced the cracked cabinet handles with hand-me-downs she found on Facebook Marketplace. She didn't waste time. Survivors rarely do. They build as fast as they've learned to escape. Meanwhile, Clarissa wasn't done. I knew. She'd find out. I'd even counted on it. I hadn't told her the unit had been re-rented, but she still had friends in the complex. People who remembered her dramatic entrances, her parking violations, her midweek meltdowns. Someone would text her. Probably already had. I just didn't care. Until I got the call. "Rachel," Dad said. "Your sister's at the house. Ours. She moved back in yesterday." I paused. "And?" "She's struggling." "She's always struggling," I said. "That's her preferred state." "She said you gave away her place." I almost laughed. "She didn't have a place. She had a debt. I just paid it off and put it to use." he sighed. Your mother's not taking it well. Clarissa's saying you're helping strangers over your own blood. She's not my blood, I said coldly. She's my history, and I'm allowed to outgrow it. A long silence followed. Then something unexpected. You're right, he said, but you might want to brace yourself. For what? She told your mother she's going to the press. That gave me pause. The press? Local blogger. One of those toxic family expose types. She's spinning the whole thing. Baby shower humiliation, the condo stolen from her, the abandoned sister narrative. I think she's hoping it goes viral. I didn't respond right away. I was already sitting down at my desk, pulling up the email I'd drafted 2 weeks ago but hadn't sent yet. Subject line, preemptive clarification. It included screenshots, scanned lease documents, bank statements, and a brief summary of the situation. Factual, neutral, legally sound. I hit send to the blogger's address Clarissa had name-dropped in the past. Then I opened a new tab and clicked publish on my own blog. I'd kept it dormant for years. But now I wrote the first new post in over 3. When family becomes the fire, you have to escape. By midnight, the blog was trending locally. Clarissa's smear campaign, died on arrival, and the twist? Maria messaged me a photo the next morning. It was her son, sitting on the freshly cleaned carpet of the condo, holding a baby book. She captioned it, "First bedtime story in our first real home." That's when I knew the story had shifted. Not just mine, but hers. And it was only the beginning. I didn't expect peace to feel so loud. After weeks of arguments, eviction threats, lies, leaks, and guilt-laced ambushes from every family angle, my house was finally still. But in that silence came clarity. Not the warm, glowing kind, but the sharp kind that cuts away what doesn't belong. I was 34, 8 months pregnant, and for the first time in my life, I could breathe without worrying who I'd have to save next. Chris had taken to calling this phase the detox. He was right. Clarissa was out. My parents had backed off after my blog post shattered the victim narrative Clarissa had carefully curated. The truth wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was just undeniable. Facts always settle where drama refuses to. We spent our mornings preparing the nursery. Soft grays, calming blues, no frills, no unnecessary fluff. I wanted our daughter's first space to be the opposite of what I'd grown up with. Chris hung shelves while I folded onesies, the baby monitor already stationed, even though there wasn't a baby yet to monitor. Friends dropped off more gifts than we could store, each one a quiet reminder that family is chosen more often than it's inherited. I hadn't heard from Clarissa since the press stunt failed and Maria moved in. I knew she was licking her wounds, recalibrating, probably plotting the next move. Clarissa never stayed down long, not because she was resilient, but because she refused to believe consequences applied to her. She was raised that way, enabled into entitlement, polished into pity, but now that pity was wearing thin, even among those who used to defend her. The next twist came not from her, but from Mom. She showed up one afternoon, uninvited, a habit I used to tolerate. This time, I didn't even open the door fully. I let the screen stay between us. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "Just talk." "You had months for that," I replied. "Now you're just showing up to make yourself feel better." She flinched but didn't retreat. "She's not doing well, Rachel." "Not my responsibility." "I know," she said, and that alone made me pause. "You know?" I repeated. "She's made this bed," Mom said quietly. "But she's still my daughter." "And I'm not?" That hung in the air like a slow, suffocating fog. "I didn't mean it that way," she added, but her voice cracked. "I just don't know how to fix her." "You were never supposed to," I said. But you broke me trying. Silence again. Then she said, Your father wants to apologize. Properly. He's embarrassed. I folded my arms. Embarrassed. He didn't stand up to her, or embarrassed I finally did. Her silence was answer enough. I'll let you know if I want to talk, I said. Not now. I closed the door slowly, not with malice, with finality. Chris didn't ask what she said when I walked back inside. He just handed me a glass of cold water and kissed my forehead. That was the kind of family I had now. No guilt, just grounding. But Clarissa wasn't done. I got the text 3 days later. It was a photo, her, standing in front of our childhood home, a duffel bag at her feet, captioned, Full circle. I stared at it for a full minute. Then came the follow-up. I know I burned bridges, but I'm tired. I miss you. I miss how we used to laugh. I miss having a sister. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of what she'd done. Just nostalgia, weaponized. The kind of message designed to bypass logic and hit you right in the memory. Chris looked at my phone over my shoulder. Don't. I'm not, I said, already deleting it. Clarissa wasn't reaching out because she changed. She was reaching out because she had nowhere else left to go. She'd exhausted every handout, burned every life raft. I was the last number she thought might still pick up. And that's the power of letting go, when you've truly detached. They no longer get to decide when the story continues. Instead, you write your own chapter, one they don't appear in. That night, I posted a new update on my blog. Not about her, not about the drama. Just a photo of the nursery, a short caption. Safe, simple, ours. In less than an hour, Maria commented, My son took his first steps in the hallway today. Thank you for giving us a home. It hit me harder than I expected, because in choosing myself, I hadn't just closed a door. I'd opened another one, not just for me, but for someone else who needed exactly what I used to need, space to breathe. And that was the most perfect revenge. Not watching her suffer, but watching me rise. The contractions started slow, a dull ache across my lower back, barely noticeable at first. It was 3 weeks earlier than expected, and the timing would have felt inconvenient if I hadn't already cleared every last shred of chaos from my life. Clarissa was gone. My parents had gone quiet. Maria had fully settled in, sending the eye, occasional update and a soft smile every time she passed by in the hallway. For once, my world felt still enough for something new to begin. Chris drove us to the hospital at dawn, his knuckles white on the wheel but his eyes steady every time. They met mine. He didn't ask if I was scared. He knew I wasn't. I was done being afraid, of pain, of loss, of being the villain in someone else's sob story. We checked in. Monitors beeped. Nurses moved with the confident rhythm of people who'd done this 1,000 times. Hours passed in a blur of breath, pressure, and control. And then, just after noon, she arrived. June. Small, wide-eyed, alert. She didn't cry much, just blinked up at me like she'd been waiting to see what I looked like. Without my armor on, Chris held her next, completely undone. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't moved, but because I had already done all my grieving in the weeks leading up to this moment. Grieving the illusion of a family I could never fix. Grieving the years I lost playing the role of savior, when I could have been my own. The first message from Clarissa came before I'd even left the hospital. Congrats, sis. Heard you finally popped. Hope you don't screw this one up. No punctuation, no heart emoji, just a jagged sentence tossed like gravel into my piece. I stared at the screen, let the words settle, then set the phone down without replying. But I didn't block her, not yet. Because sometimes silence is more terrifying than rage, and I wanted her to sit in it, to know I saw it, and chose not to react. That night, I sat in the rocker, June pressed to my chest, and I scrolled through. Her text again. I almost expected a second one, a backpedal, a fake apology. Instead, I got something worse, a photo. Her face, blotchy and red. The caption, I miss my sister. It hit differently than her usual theatrics, because once, I might have responded. Once, I might have told myself that people lash out when they're hurting, that she needed grace, that I was the bigger person. But being the bigger person is just another trap for women taught to bleed quietly. So I opened my notes app and started typing. Not a reply, a list, the things I gave up for her, the money, the time, the dignity, the birthdays she ruined, the holidays she hijacked, the boyfriends she manipulated into thinking I was cold, selfish, lucky, the businesses she tried to poison, from the sidelines, the therapist I saw twice a month to unlearn how to survive her, and at the bottom of that list, I wrote, she will never be June's aunt. It wasn't spite, it was strategy. 3 days later, we brought June home. Her room smelled like lavender and fresh paint. A white noise machine hummed softly in the corner. Chris carried her inside like a glass sculpture while I checked the front door, something in me still expecting to find Clarissa's car parked outside. But there was no car. There was, however, a note shoved into our mailbox. Scrawled handwriting. Unsealed. Torn envelope. Fine, you win. But don't come running back when your perfect little world cracks. I won't be there to catch you. There it was. Her final card. The prediction. The curse. The threat disguised as detachment. I folded the note, walked to the sink, and lit it on fire. Chris didn't ask what it said. He didn't need to. He just watched the flame curl through the paper until nothing was left but ash and bad history. Then he said, she'll try again. I know. What will you do? I smiled. Nothing. Nothing? She's already lost. She just doesn't know it yet. Because the greatest revenge isn't power, it's peace, the kind she'll never touch. 3 months. That's how long it took for the phone to stop vibrating with guilt, accusation, or damage control. 3 months since I shut the door on Clarissa, not out of spite, but out of necessity. June was sleeping soundly now, her tiny chest rising and falling like a quiet metronome in the bass line of my new life. No screaming sisters, no guilt-laced apologies. Just breath, just peace. Just mine. Clarissa had tried one last time to crack through the wall I built. A carefully worded email came 2 weeks after June's birth. No subject line. Just 2 sentences. I've changed. Can we talk? It was short, almost strategic. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit. Unread. A digital reminder that not every olive branch is worth reaching for. I eventually clicked it open. Not to reply, but to confirm something, she hadn't changed her tone. There was no apology, no accountability, just a pivot, a performance rebranded. She wasn't trying to heal the relationship. She was trying to reset it, just enough for the cycle to start again. That's when I knew. Clarissa was never going to change, but I already had. So I wrote one final message. Clarissa, I wish you growth, but I can't be part of your storyline anymore. I won't let June grow up thinking love means fixing people who refuse to fix themselves. We're done. Then I blocked her everywhere. And for the first time in 34 years, I felt like I existed without strings. I don't say that lightly. When you grow up being the strong one, you get used to holding the weight of other people's consequences. You learn to bend, to soften, to absorb impact and call it resilience. But strength isn't absorbing. Strength is knowing when to stop. People will tell you family is everything, and I get it, I do. But sometimes, family is just a word. People hide behind to excuse behavior they'd never tolerate from anyone else. Blood is not an obligation. It's biology. Loyalty? That's earned. What I've learned, painfully, slowly, but fully, is that walking away doesn't mean you failed them. It means you finally chose you. I don't wake up every morning feeling vindicated. This isn't a victory lap. It's quieter than that. It's a kitchen that stays clean, a front door that doesn't open to drama, a daughter who will never be taught to shrink herself so someone else can feel big. That's the real win. People still ask about Clarissa sometimes. Old friends, extended relatives. They tread carefully, as if saying her name might ignite something. I just smile and say, "We're not in touch." That's it. No bitterness, no backstory, just fact. That's the real revenge. No explanation needed. Maria still sends updates. Her little boy turned 2 last week. She sent a video of him blowing out candles in the condo that used to be Clarissa's war zone, now a safe place, full of light. Every time I see it, I remember that pain can be repurposed, that some endings make room for beginnings far more beautiful than we imagined. And Chris? He still watches me like he did the day I read that first eviction notice aloud. Calm, sure, grounded. We built something unshakable, not because we had a perfect past, but because we both stopped running from the truth. That sometimes love means choosing your peace over someone else's comfort. So here it is. My message to you, if you're still with me. You are not cruel for enforcing your boundaries. You are not heartless for walking away from someone who's been walking over you for years. You are not broken for realizing that family can be the heaviest weight of all. You are allowed to choose yourself. Again, and again, and again. And when you do, you'll find that the silence you once feared becomes the space where something real can finally grow. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, if it made you feel seen, if it lit something in you that's been dimmed for far too long, hit that subscribe button. Support the channel so we can keep telling the stories that matter, the ones they don't put in fairy tales, but that still deserve to be heard. There's more to come, and you deserve to hear all of it.